We're starting up a new section today, and our new section today is called Types of Governments. So go ahead and write down types of governments and then underline. So we're going to learn about types of governments. We're going to talk about the major government types that we see in the world today. And the first of the government types we're going to talk about is a democracy. Go ahead and make a bullet and write down the word democracy. So bullet, democracy. Now, a democracy is a type of government that the United States has. So we are a democracy. And in a democracy, you have a government which is elected by the people. Okay, so people, they vote, and then whoever wins in those votes is elected by the people. Go ahead and make a one. Government is elected by the people. So one, government is elected by the people. So government is elected by the people in a democracy. You vote for people to represent you in the government. There's two different types of governments. You have representative democracy, or representative republic, as it normally was called, and then you have a direct democracy. So in a representative republic, that's when you vote for people to represent you in a republic-style government. A republic-style government is when you have a president, you have a Congress, and you have a court system. President enforces laws, Congress makes the laws, and a court system decides if the laws are legal. So that's how the system kind of works. In a direct democracy, however, you vote directly on the laws. So instead of voting for people to represent you in government, you instead vote directly on what laws should be and if they'll pass or not. So as a person just living a normal life, you could propose a new law, and that new law that you proposed could then get voted on by everyone, and they could either say yes or no. So you could come up with your own law as just a regular person, and people could vote yes or no on that new law that you came up with. So that's how direct democracy works. Now, in our democracy in the United States, if you want to vote, you must be 18 or older. So 18 or older to vote. Now, that's not true in every single country. Just in the United States it is, and we probably should write that down. Going to make it 2, 18 or older to vote. So 2, 18 or older to vote. So if you want to vote in the United States, you have to be 18 or older. Do you have to vote? No. There is no law in the United States that makes it compulsory to vote. Compulsory means that you have to vote. So there's no law in the United States saying that, hey, it's compulsory for you to vote, and if you don't vote, then A, you got to pay a fine. No law like that in the United States. There are countries with that law. For example, Australia has a law saying that you have to vote, and if you don't vote, you get a fine. So democratic governments, they work because generally they are free and fair elections. They have representatives. You have people that are accountable, that are running the government. Participation is open to everybody. And it has a just and equitable legal system. So democracies work when all of these things are working. If one of these things isn't working, that's when democracy has problems. And that's when you get the issues of corruption and such. Corruption is basically when someone is taking money from somebody else. Someone in government is taking money from somebody else to pass laws that that person wants to have passed that benefits that person, and the government official is then getting money. So that's corruption. So when you're doing stuff not for what's right, but for what's right for your pocketbook as a leader. All right, now leaders in the United States, though. Very limited power. So people in charge of government, they have limited power, and their right to rule comes from the people because people voted on them. Go ahead and make a 3. Write down leader, limited power, right to rule comes from the people. So in the United States, your right to rule comes from the people voting for you. So that's where your right to rule comes from. The right to rule for president doesn't come by them being born into it or by having a bigger army than anybody else. All right? It comes from the people voting for you. So that's 3. Leader, limited power, right to rule comes from the people. And in a democratic government, the basic principle of law is supreme. All right, and everyone is equal under law. Pretty standard things for laws. Indiana, a citizen cannot vote if you're in prison. So that's kind of a little bit of a side note. If you're in prison, no voting for you. So there's about 29,000 people in Indiana that currently are in prison. They're not allowed to vote while they're in prison. Now, this map right here shows all the governments in the world that say that they are a democracy. So every place in blue here says that they are a democracy and they have free and open elections. Every place in red says they do not. Now, you notice there's a slight problem with this map because we have some places on there that definitely should be in red because they definitely do not have democratic elections. Particular places that we know about, North Korea, for example, that is definitely a oligarchy. You have a family running stuff and an elite group of military personnel running stuff. It may be a dictatorship as well. We're not too sure exactly who's running stuff in North Korea because it's kind of hard to get information out of there. But North Korea definitely is not a democracy. China is pretty much an oligarchy. You have an elite group of people in the government that kind of run everything. That's not open, fair elections. It's elite people in the government kind of running stuff. So China, North Korea, they're not democracies. When there's a couple other people over here who identify themselves as red, that's because they usually have a king or queen that kind of runs stuff. So, for example, in Saudi Arabia, there's a king. Okay. We'll also see Vatican City is in red over here in Europe. Vatican City is run by the Catholic Church. The person in charge of the Catholic Church is the Pope. Myanmar over there is currently run by the military, so they're not currently a democracy. They were a democracy kind of in 2012. They allowed elections, but the military is kind of still in charge, and military kind of just completely took over here recently. So that map, shows every place I said that says that they're a democracy, and we know that a lot of places on here aren't really democracies. They're not really being honest about what they actually are. This map here then kind of helps us out a bit more because this map here then shows corruption. Places that are in blue on this are places that don't have much corruption. Things are pretty fair and everything's pretty much on the up and up. So they have, fair elections and everything, and things work just fine. Places in green, there are some problems. So places in green is where there is problems with corruption. Elections aren't always on the up and up. There's government bribes. People get paid money to pass laws that other people want to have pass laws. So there's definitely problems going on. It's not horrible, but there are definitely issues going on. And then places in red is where corruption is rampant and things are not really fair for folks. Okay. So places in red, pretty widespread corruption where there's a lot of issues, and these places that say that they're democracies are definitely not. Okay. Russia says they're democracy, but when you throw anybody who's running against you as president in jail, kind of hard to say that you're a democracy. And that's true for a lot of these countries here and such that are in red that claim to be democracies. All right.